What's up? We're here with another review. This time it's Malcolm and Marie. This will be a spoiler review, just so everyone knows. So let's get right into it. It stars Zendaya and John David Washington, written and directed by Sam Levinson. Um, and my first impressions are just wow. Um, I literally just finished watching this, and really just it's one of those films that gives you so much to think about coming out of it. But Nick, you've had a little bit more time to think of it. What are your thoughts?
Similar emotional reaction, even though like I watched it like last night, like I'm still like feeling the after effects. Let's how best to number one, this might have been one of the most toxic couples I've seen on screen recently. I was like I hit the 40-minute mark and I was like, I don't know how you two have been together for more than a week, let alone a whole film shoot. Because I was like, this is insane. There's like still like an hour more of them like still going at it. I was like, oh my God. That was one, and that contributed to the second thing, which was I was exhausted by the end of this film. I haven't been this exhausted at the end of like a new film since like maybe when I watched Good Time last year for the first time from the Safdie brothers, or maybe Uncut Gems as well. Like those films were just similar. Like I was exhausted at the end of this film. I was like, I want to go to bed. This that was just so like draining. And um the two performers, like they held the fort. I mean, it was it was them or no one else, but they really held the fort. I was really impressed with Zendaya. I knew was like gonna be fine. I think it was like I was like really impressed with John David just because like I haven't like so far we've seen him as like only like the sarcastic sort of witty cop from Black Klansman and then the action hero in Tenet where he didn't have all that much. So here I was like, okay, he can bring it a bit. Um, the script I think has a little some room for discussion, just like in greater detail, but I have like I'm like back and forth on like some of the way things were written and like presented. So I guess we could talk about that going forward. Last thing, oh, the direction. I really love the direction and cinematography. I think that opening one shot, like when it's like side by side,
Yeah,
like you see John David like pacing, and then you see Zendaya, like that was done really well. And there's a lot of great shots where like like when John David's like looking for Zendaya and like it's from the bedroom and the three windows and you see his like
yeah,
body.
yeah.
That was really cool. And when they replicated that at the end with them together, I was like, that was really cool. That was yeah, the direction was really great. I've again to go from our Zendaya review, I haven't seen Euphoria, but I was like, this was really cool, just like on a visual, like technical level. Yeah, those are my brief overall thoughts so far.
I'm trying to look up this Marcel Rev, uh,
Mhm.
or Reeve. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Is the cinematographer, and he's the same one who did Euphoria. And in some ways, this is similar to Euphoria in the way it's shot. In some ways, it's different. I think the
Okay.
long takes, the kind of the camera. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the camera is another character in this film, right? You notice in these long takes back and forth, you notice the camera, even if the blocking is fantastic and it's motivated. The camera it does feel somewhat like a part of the film, but
Right.
then there are parts where it doesn't. And I think that kind of blend of what we call like normal filmmaking
Mhm.
and kind of the euphoria. I call it euphoria style. It's kind of exaggerated movements evoke emotions where the camera is
Mhm.
very much a character. I think the combination of that is something that I really liked. Um, and I got to talk about the scene before we get. Actually, no. Let's get into greater detail, and then
Okay.
we'll go back and review it as a whole.
Okay.
The knife scene,
The
my
knife scene.
favorite scene this year.
Right. I buy
I,
it.
oh my god, that whole scene. You're questioning. You're like, oh my god, she has a knife. She's a former drug
Yeah.
addict. She said she's off of medication. Like
Mhm.
I'm about to have a panic attack, right? And us as the audience, we don't know the film that she's referencing that John
Yeah.
David Washington's character made, Malcolm made. And I'm like, oh god, oh god, oh god, this is not good. This is not good. Like, what's gonna happen? And then she's like, that's fucking authentic.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yo, like that's better than any twist that I've seen because it just hits everything so perfectly. Everything that's built up to that moment,
Mhm.
that scene. I mean, it proves, like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have not had a bigger sense of tension with a better payoff
Yeah.
than that scene. The whole construction, and that's in my opinion, the beauty of the writing of this film is the structure and
Mhm.
the progression of the narrative. Um, all up to that scene and everything builds to that scene and boom, the payoff is just so valuable in that moment. And then the way it continues after that is really interesting. That was my favorite
That
moment.
was I won't repeat because you basically hit everything on the head perfectly about that. But like, yeah, you like just when she like puts the like knife down and she gives her little like like verbal like bow like that was like her performance, and you and John David are just like like what the hell, like you're just like so like you're just like trying to process like that like moment. And like I just love like that was such a convincing just like twist of a character. Like usually like it's seen with like multiple personality or like doppelganger characters, like multiple personality like characters. But like um I'm trying to find like a good example. But anytime you see like a character in a movie and their character is an actor and you see them like DiCaprio did it really well, I think, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he was just able to like stay in character in his film character, but then jump into another character and then switch back and forth. There was a lot of that similar energy here, and she sold it just really well. Just like body language, just um, like the way her face was contorted, like and just like the relief like she had like when she just dropped the act. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then for John David's only response to be like, why didn't you do that at the audition? I was like, oh my god, what a and it felt like forever. That was like what it was like a 5 minute scene. It felt like forever though, like just the
Mm-hmm.
tension of the whole thing.
Oh my gosh. And let's talk about I'm gonna get more into the performances later, but let's talk about the writing.
Okay.
Um, I feel like there's a subgenre coming in film where
Mm,
there's the taking place in one location.
yeah.
That's one. And the other genre that's coming out is this blend of theater and film. And I
Mhm.
feel like we saw it in Ma Rainey, which is based off a play, right? We saw it
Mhm.
somewhat in One Night in Miami.
Also based on a
And
play.
right, and we're seeing it here on a film that's not based on a play, but it has that sort of
Right.
almost it's like it's things real people would say, but the it almost feels theatrical at times. And I'm curious to think, one, what are your thoughts on the writing as a whole? And what are your thoughts on kind of this new genre of filmmaking?
Yeah. I mean the whole like one room movie, it's a lot of them like a lot, I feel like a lot of them are descendant of 12 Angry Men, which is one of like my favorite movies ever. Um The Lighthouse is a similar one from 2019. It feels like forever ago. I like how again and like that just it just as a whole it allows you to just do so much on like character casting basis and on just a direction basis. Like how do you make use of like one location? So yeah, it's just one. It's really ironic that like from like I know you haven't seen like The Boys in the Band was similar, and then Ma Rainey, and then One Night, and now this. There seems to be some sort of like trend following or just the way they've been released. On on the writing level, like there were several points where I was taken out of like the moment just because like just the way things were being, I feel like some things were being said the way like they were going on and just like John David's like it feels like 10 minutes again like but like it's probably short, like his whole like 10-minute rant after his review came out, like one that was shot really well. I think just the way they had him like framed and everything, and like Zendaya like on the couch, I think that was framed really well. I just know at a certain point for me, I like got sucked out of it. I was just like, he's still going. He's still like finding things to like complain about, and I was just like, I was like, I don't know, like it's there were several moments and with the writing that I think the way things were just like said that like one reference the toxicity of the couple, which I guess is the like the point of the movie, but also like it is. I was like, is exhausting listening to you two like deliver these long monologues and just like constantly like just like like try and like degrade the other. And I don't know, like I also didn't like how like with John David's like that monologue I just referenced, like I didn't um I don't know how I feel about how he kept returning back to that white critic in the LA Times, because I know like it hasn't been explicitly said, but I know that like Sam Levinson got like a bad review for his last film from Assassination Nation from a white review critic from the LA Times. And like I'm not saying he's like was like trying to like just like complain through John David's character, but it just like he harps on it a lot. And I don't know, I feel like there were some ideas, but they got like overridden somehow in these like long, just drastic, like when, by the time John David's like referencing like Gone with the Wind and that one monologue, I'm like, you made your point like 3 different times already. I just felt like really like exhausted. And then again, just like most of this is just like argument to argument to argument. And it does like, I think like the structure of it like unfolds in a good way too. Like when it builds to her just going like, why didn't you cast me? Like that felt like like that felt like the natural like endpoint. Like we are working all the way back, but I just felt like, I don't know, it was just like really, it just felt like sometimes a little bit indulgent. Like some of the things like they were like his whole like when he was like complaining about like the art and like the politics of it, it just felt a little indulgent at times. Like he was like both patting himself on the back and like ranting about the state of things. It just, I don't know. It felt, I don't know. It felt just, I don't know. Sorry, I'm like rambling. I'm like trying to find the proper words to explain. Just felt there was like a lot of points he made, but he like overrode it to the point where I couldn't like buy into it. Or I couldn't like I was just exhausted by it. I was like, all right, I get what you're saying. You can like, I don't know. That's just me going off like, yeah, initial thoughts.
Yeah, I'll push back on that actually
Mhm.
because I really liked that scene and I thought it was interesting, both on the commentary of how reviews are written, because there's a lot of validity to what some of the stuff he says, John Malcolm says is like, but there's stuff about it that's very valid,
Yeah.
um, and it feels very in character. Marie talks about earlier how you spent like a whole year, like the whole speech thanking everyone but me, like literally everyone but me. Like
Mhm.
this dude is a guy who goes on rants. He's a director, he's a writer, he's over explaining stuff, over analyzing stuff. He is long-winded. It all, to me, it makes sense that's like, to me, I was like, that makes sense to who his character would be.
Mhm.
So, and I really like the whole arc of the LA Times review. I wonder if Sam Levinson really reflecting on it, like looking back on it, because there's a pushback with Marie. Marie's like, maybe you're right, you know what? But also, like, do you need to be reacting like that to a review, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I think that's what's interesting is I don't think Levinson, if it's talking about the LA Times, I don't think he's necessarily talking about that critic in specific. I don't think that's true at all. I think it's more of him using that and kind of infusing it into the script and making his own commentary on that within a film, which I think is really interesting.
I won't like I'm not saying like the points were necessarily bad. Like I do like going back to that first like one shot I mentioned, and he's like, how did the conversation go? He was like talking about how like she was comparing him to like Spike Lee and Barry Jenkins, and he was like, well, what about William Wyler, a white filmmaker? And like she like stumbled. Like I thought that was like really, really interesting, and I thought like it could have been like this. And I feel like I'm not saying the points were necessarily bad. I just feel at certain points like the monologues got like, for me the monologues got like self-indulgent, and I was kind of like drawn out of it by how like just long and abrasive and like it was like
Right.
I don't know. I get what you're saying. Like it's in the character. But that's another thing I feel too. I'm like going back and forth in my head. Like, did I buy that these two felt like actual like human beings? Because like at some points I felt like these were just real like mouthpieces isn't the right word, but sort of like just like these were both were just symbols of like this greater like artistic debate, and so they never felt like actual people. They felt more like these ideologies. Sam Levinson like like he wrote up like a manifesto of like these two ideologies and just had them like clash. It never. Sometimes it felt like these weren't like just normal people. I don't know. At one point, he says he says some sort of like word where I was like, I don't know if people actually use that in like normal language. It was like during the bathtub scene or something, but I don't know. Like again, stuff I'm back and forth on. I'm not saying the ideas are bad, or just moments that like just brought me out back and forth.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think that comes down to the style. You know what I mean? And I think this is a movie that's not necessarily for everyone. I think that this subgenre that we've been talking about, this like theater infused with what we call regular cinema combined, is a genre that maybe doesn't fit everyone. Is
Yeah.
there something that is inherently not quite realistic,
Mhm.
but there is a honesty to it that I think is
That's
really interesting.
I just
Um,
yeah, no, that's fair. I don't know, I just remember
to use another word, there's an authenticity to it.
I love their back and forth on that. That's true. That is fair. I don't know. I just recall like Chadwick's monologue in Ma Rainey, like the first time like he like breaks down, he's telling the band like his origin story. Like I don't know, that felt like just more natural to me in the story and like just as a character moment. And while here, like I don't know, maybe just because the character of Malcolm is like a jerk in a lot of ways, but is also like this like conflicted artist. It just like feels like I don't know. It's there's like just a difference in the monologues and like how I felt like how natural they came off. But I do get what you're saying though. There's like a level of like truth and like in the like the heightened reality-ness of it.
Right. And I think it comes down to what the film's about. And the film is about like peeling off layers
Yeah.
and fully realizing each layer and level. And I think that's what, to do that, there's some need for unrealistic dialogue. You know, all dialogue's unrealistic, let's be honest. No one writes a movie of what people say. They said, go, how was your day? Good. How was yours? Pretty good, man. Like, not too bad. No one wants to hear that on screen, right?
Fully, yeah.
So, but
Right.
there is something that there's this elevated sense of like almost a narrator, all-knowing narrator knowledge to the characters, which I personally I've liked from the past few films I've seen,
Right.
but I don't know. It's very new, so it's hard for me to really wrap my head around it.
Um yeah, that I feel that. If you could go, sorry. I was just like
Yeah,
speaking out loud.
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about filmmaking as a whole, and we'll get back into the story. But how did you feel? I know you said you really liked the cinematography. You talked about the shot in the bedroom, the shot with the three window frames. Was there anything else cinematography wise, or just general directing that's really stood out to you?
I'm trying to like recall like certain stuff, but like I don't know, just like I think one this maybe like how to describe it, like the way the pattern he had them like going around the house, like that's another thing you have to do with like one room locations. You have to like make sure the characters aren't just sitting around most of the time. Like just you have to keep them moving. Like with Ma Rainey, they were in the basement, they were in the recording studio. Like sometimes there was that like moments in the street. And I love just the way they like I don't know, like they were outside, they were like in the living room, they were in the kitchen, they were like back in the bedroom. I don't know why, but it felt like natural. Like whenever like they would end up somewhere, it's like, oh, Malcolm goes to get another drink, even though he's had like five like already so far. It's like Marie goes to like goes back to the bedroom, but like this time he like knocks the door down. I just love the way they kind of like I guess plotted them around the house. They made good use of just placing them at different locations in accordance with their arguments. that scene where like John David just walks outside and he's like rambling to himself and quiet. He's like kicking the grass or whatnot. Like I think that was just a great way to keep just like to make use of the location. I think that was just pretty good way of just structuring like where they were, like what was the correlation to the argument. And again, that whole monologue scene he had where like he's outside and the door frame is like has his focus in Zendaya is just like lying on the couch like watching him melt down.
Laughing, yeah.
That was a really great one again.
Yeah, and I love how that frame ends with the pull up to just a bird's eye view of the two of them. I love that whole end and the transition they make. And I love the use of long takes. You know, there's some back and forth, but they use long takes really well.
Yeah.
In this. And I think it's a beauty of long takes that I think filmmakers are starting to do more. Mm-hmm. Is it gives you just feel like you're sitting with the character, you know, after they've said something. You really sit with them, like get more of an idea of how they're thinking after, you know, that starts to go in your head, those sort of bubbles. And I think it's something that's really effectively used here for both Malcolm and Marie's characters, because it's what makes the silent moments really interesting as opposed to being really boring.
Right.
And I think that's really well done. Framing is the framing in this film is so excellent.
I would like not be surprised. In fact, I would be quite happy if what's the cinematographer's name again? That's
I believe it's, hold on, let me make sure I don't get it wrong. I believe it's Marcel Rev.
Yeah, I would not be surprised, and I would not be upset at all. In fact, I'd be quite happy if he got some sort of nomination. Because again, it's like this isn't even like the first like black and white film that's like come out. I mean, Mank was black and white, Lighthouse was black and white, but this one like they really like got creative with the house, and they really made great use of the location.
Yeah. Let's get back into the story, and then we'll kind of wrap up with our final thoughts. I mean, Zendaya's I think they're both. I think they're both probably Oscar nominees for their performances. But as far as their characters and their character arcs, I really love this whole thing about Marie, you know, really wanting to have been in the movie and how that really hurt her. And then, you know, her not even getting credit for being so involved. And Malcolm almost not realizing how involved she is and how that hurts her, and the whole back and forth. Just the whole fight, the way it unravels layer to layer to layer. And, you know, like when someone's being honest versus when someone's really just trying to win an argument. I think that's really interesting, and kind of the way it shows that it's a boiling pot, right? The whole time. I really love every single moment of that up until the end.
Sorry, I'm like trying to gather my thoughts. I feel like I know it's like we've been going back and forth on like I have like my own like hesitations on the writing, and for me it feels like kind of like traversing through a minefield. But I will say the way like that again that end destination of her just asking like, why didn't you cast me? Then feeling it was like first it was like, you didn't thank me. Then it was like the critics and like what was the actress he cast, Taylor, and then it was like we're working back, we're working. Then it was like you like plagiarized my life story, and then like working all the way back to that initial start point. I think the way they structured that was really great, and I think that made the last few minutes really sell. I'm just looking at my Oscar predicts. I'll have to see. What do I have to see? I still have to see Sound of Metal and Minari, but I'm not sure necessarily about John David, although that's great. I really enjoyed his performance. I think Zendaya. I believe everyone now who was like she could very well get a nomination. I buy it, and if so, it'll be the best actress race this year is going to be one for the ages if she pulls it off. I think for me, the knife scene and that final monologue might be what clinches it for her.
Yeah, I guarantee you at the Oscars they'll show the knife scene.
Yeah, the knife scene, the thank you monologue at the end. That's where I really like the knife scene. I love the knife scene. But it was the thank you monologue that was like a perfect exclamation point on her and the film as a whole. I was like, yep, that's
Yeah.
this is like her odds raised substantially. Like now that we've both seen it.
Right, right. And I'm kind of in the camp right now where both, but I think John David's closer to the edge than Zendaya is. But both, I think, are spectacular performances. Like, let's be clear, they're both Oscar caliber performances. Like, they're that amazing. And in a year that's actually been surprisingly good with the amount of films that have been pushed and not released.
Yeah.
Um, that last shot, I really love that last shot. Um, the whole idea that the two of them are together looking out, it's hard to tell in black and white if it's a sunrise or not.
Yeah.
Um, but there's really a inherent beauty to that shot. And I think there's some, I don't know quite what it's meant to say, but there is something that feels poetic about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it ends with them standing side by side, and like, and it's a replication of my favorite shot from the film as we've gone over and over again. But like, and even in that first time we see that 3 window thing, he's like looking for her. He's all alone, but in the end, they're back together, or at least they're standing by each other. And you don't know if they'll fight later that day, if they reach some sort of new understanding. But I mean, they're still side by side. I think that was a really great way to like just final shot wise just to end it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's so much more we could delve into, but we're not going to make this a 2 hour review. It's definitely a film I think I'm going to rewatch because there's so much just to pick up and like analyze about this film. But let's get into like final rankings. What either range or if you know what specific number, where does this kind of sit in your films for the year?
I mean, it's really right now just between this and The Little Things, which we'll be providing review on. This one on just sheer like um performance wise gets ahead of The Little Things. I mean, yeah, it's just on a direction basis alone. No offense to John Lee Hancock of The Little Things, but on a direction cinematography level alone, this already boosts it up. We'll see what happens in the coming few weeks. Judas and the Black Messiah, Cherry. So it's going to be 2020 is
Let
going
me
to
let me rephrase though. In the Oscar season, let's say up to now, is it top 5, top 10?
I don't. Um, hmm, let's see in the Oscar race. So I'm just like getting the Oscar ranks. I think if anything, I could see it getting a best cinematography and best actress nom. Beyond that, I have no idea. Best director is really tight this year. Between at least from what I hear about, like Chloe Zhao, Emerald Fennell. As for best picture, that one's also a tough one. Like I think, like off the top of my head right now, it's probably a better film than like Trial to Chicago 7. But I also know Trial to Chicago 7 is going to get nominated for best picture because that's what they do. Um, I don't know. I think for right now, it's just best actress and best cinematography. We could see it going for. We'll see. We'll see how it narrows out. It didn't get any Globe or SAG noms, but that's also because it just didn't release.
Right.
So, I guess we'll see. Maybe I have no idea when the BAFTAs announce their nominations, but maybe the BAFTAs will give it some air.
Yeah. I know for me in like the Oscar race, it is somewhere in between 6 and 1. 1 and 6 is kind of the range. It really could be anywhere. This might be my favorite film. It might be my sixth. Um, it's in that. And this is like the best category. This is like the best compliment I can give a film. Is it's as good as Sound of Metal, Small Axe, Soul, and One Night in Miami. Because for me, those are films that are like infinitely rewatchable
Yeah,
and just like brilliant filmmaking. I think for me, I think cinematography is almost a lock. I feel like.
I can't think of anything else from the last months that could even like pull it off. I think it'd be really funny if Mank gets nominated for cinematography because I think that'll just be really funny.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. I think it's shot really well. Never mind. But you know what I mean about
Yeah.
my feel. You know my feelings of Mank. But I think writing, I think screenplay, I think directing, I think acting, I think it's going to be in the conversation for all that come season,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
deservedly so.
I'm just really interested because like Judas and the Black Messiah isn't even getting released till next week. But Daniel Kaluuya still picked up nods, unless it was in a like a festival circuit that I didn't
There
see.
were advanced screenings for both of these films.
Okay, interesting then. I guess we'll see. This is like as of right now, this is the ultimate dark horse.
Mhm.
Released the latest. We got three award ceremonies, counting the independent. Like three award ceremonies already announced, and they haven't had anything. But if it manages to work its way to the Oscars, that'll be like completely like like it'll be interesting thing to see if they break in or how much they break into it.
Yeah, and I think that wraps it up. I mean, this is really props to Sam Levinson, Zendaya, and John David Washington for coming, and Marcel Reeve and everyone else involved in the film for coming together, making this film during quarantine, for putting all the crew in the credits at the beginning of the film. Props to them for that. I have a lot of respect in them doing that, and I just there's something really interesting that I think people will sit and reflect about on this film, uh, about like what it means to be in love and what it means to be a good partner, because that's another part of the film I think is really powerful. But we'll leave you. Let us know what you thought. What was the most powerful moments that stood out to you? Um, what really sat with you in this film? How do you think this is going to play in during Oscar season? And just where does this rank for you as a film in the year 2020, 2021? Let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video, and we'll see you next time.
So